Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. My name is Matt and in today's video of Tower Simulator 3 we're going to be going back to Calgary in Canada. We've only played this airport once actually when it came out, so I thought it'd be a good time to go back to it and have a look at how we can get going. In today's video we're going to be playing with the old schedule that we played last time. First, if you've not seen any of the other episodes, please do check them out on the channel. And if you do have any questions, comments or feedback, then please do let me know in the comment section. And as always, if you do like the content, please do like and subscribe at the edge. Cool. So into this one then, as I said, Calgary, it's a bit of an interesting airport. It is a third-party one, so we don't have any new just design schedule. So I'm using my one that I generated with ChatGPT last time. And it's quite a busy one, to be honest, with the way that it's scheduled it. I've not really had the time to really create anything or do anything, but the last time I played it, it was pretty busy. So we're just going to go ahead and try that again. Last time we ran the 1.7s, I think we got started off with 1.1 as well, and departed off 1.7. Whereas today we're going to switch things up a little bit, so it's going to be arriving on 3.5 left and also 3.5 right, and then departures are going to be off runway 29 and runway 3.5 right for today. I'm just going to preload 1 hour in, and we're going to be playing the 8 AM in the morning schedule. So this is the schedule that we have. It's quite a busy one in terms of how it goes. We played the 4 PM hour last time. I think it was about 160 movements in the schedule. Split pretty much. Probably weighted a little bit more towards arrivals, whereas this one in the 8 AM hour is weighted more towards departures. So we have 100 departures and around 65 arrivals, I think. Probably not going to get all of them arrivals, but to try and get 100 departures out alongside them is going to be a little bit crazy. I don't think we're going to get the 100 departures. I just don't think there's enough gates to load all of that stuff in. But again, it's just a busy schedule just to get something in for this airport. I did want to go back and play it, but I just thought it's probably easier just using an existing schedule that we've already got. So we'll play for around the hour-ish. It's probably going to take longer than that to get rid of all the planes. But we're probably just going to play for around, yeah, good 50 minutes, an hour worth actual play time. So we'll get me all set and everything like that. It obviously is early on in the morning, so we'll get the airport lights on as well. And I just need to familiarise myself back with the taxiways and figure out where everything is, because as I said, it's been a long time since we played this one. It's quite a cool airport in terms of the way it's laid out. We probably don't need all that up there today, so we'll drag that down to like here. Don't think they're going to come off past Zulu because we don't have the heavies landing on that runway. So we should be able to fit everything there. Hopefully you guys can see all of that. I know you can't really see the bottom of 3.5 left, but that shouldn't be too much of it. Right, cool, that's fine. Then, cameras wise, we have F7 here above the tower. I mean, this is a beautiful beautiful morning here. As I said, we're going to be departing off 3.5 right, which is over that way. And we're going to be landing 3.5 left there. And then we also have 2.9 here, so any of this stuff here is going to go off 2.9. We also can bring anything pretty much down Bravo here and bring them along here. I have no idea if you can actually fit a wide. You're not going to fit a wide body. We're going to send all the heavies off 3.5 right anyway. We're probably going to use Sierra as an intersection, which is here for some of the lighter stuff. And then the heavies are going to come down Bravo, and then we'll probably send some stuff down to 9 here. Anything that's spawned kind of, let me just have a figure out where everything is. So we should have some stuff down here. Anything that's down here, we're just going to send these guys off 3.5 left, I think. I said the stuff just literally spawned everywhere. So we have F7 over here. We have F8 over this cargo ramp, which doesn't really have too much in. If I check TS3 assistant, we don't actually get that many cancelled flights. It's only about 5, which is very, very surprising. We have F9 over here, which gives us a view of all of this stuff. As you can see, this is very, very busy. And then we have F10 down here. I don't have an F11. So, let me just quickly check from this side. Don't know why there's a cargo over there. But, I must say, it is extremely Gonna get a nice screenshot for the thumbnail here. And then we'll get straight into it. So, movements wise, what we're going to do is just bring everyone along Echo and down Delta or Bravo, depending on what they're doing. Heavies will just come along Juliet, so cargo will come along Juliet as well. This cargo down here will probably bring down uniform and take off 29er. And then I said anything in around this area is going to come off 29er. And then we can also bring stuff kind of down Golf as well. We'll see how we're doing in terms of 3-5. And then, as I said, if we need to start bringing stuff over to 29er, then we will. Okay, so let's reset the F7 camera to here because we're going to need to face this way. And then get stuff moving. WestJet 8380, pushback approved, facing south. WestJet 8380, pushback approved, facing south. So he'll come straight along Echo, and then he'll take Delta to Sierra, and then the heavies are all going to take Bravo. The rest of the stuff's all going to come down Delta, I think. Delta 8618, pushback approved, facing north.
Pushback approved, facing north, Delta 8618.
I'm going to set the separation to 3 nautical miles and see how we get on with that, because there is like 60 planes that we need to get in. What will probably end up happening is all this stuff up here, which are going to come down straight from here, is probably easier. So all this stuff from up here will probably bring down Hotel and Golf, and then Foxtrot, take them off at 29er, and then we're just going to have to fit that as soon as these are vacating. We'll have to get these rolling on there. Arrivals are going to come up Charlie, so they're going to vacate, they're going to come up Charlie, and then inbound via whatever Juliet here. They're probably going to just taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet to start with. And then yeah, we'll kind of figure them out wherever they need to go. On camera. United 6813, pushback approved, facing east.
Pushback approved, facing east, United 6813.
Air Canada 4143, pushback approved, facing south. This is going to be busy. It's going to be very busy, but I'm quite looking forward to playing it. It's certainly an interesting airport. I think we had a lot of fun with it last time.
Calgary Tower, WestJet 569 upon final 35 left.
WestJet 569, runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet 8380, runway 35 right at Sierra via Juliet Delta.
Runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet
I don't know why it does that. A little bit of a gap in there. I don't know what that's doing. Delta 8618, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Just remembered we've got the arrivals coming on, haven't we? So we're going to have to be careful with them. We do have arrivals on 35 right, so we're probably going to have to push everything facing south. WestJet 126, standard pushback approved, facing south. And bring him down to 29er, I think.
Pushback approved, facing south. WestJet 126.
WestJet 9226, runway 35 right to clear to land. He shouldn't come off at Delta 4, so it's going to be Delta 6 at Zulu.
WestJet 9226.
SWG.
Calgary Tower, WestJet 9226, final 35 right.
Trust him. We've got constant arrivals on 35 right here. United 6813, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Probably bring them guys down Bravo. I think arrivals wise, they're probably going to taxi down Bravo to hold Bravo and Bravo Charlie. Air Canada 4143, runway 29er via Golf.
Runway 29er via Golf, Air Canada 4143.
WestJet 4580, pushback approved, facing west. WestJet 8380, runway 35 right via Bravo. Delta 8618, runway 35 right at Sierra via Delta. United 6813, runway 35 right at Sierra via Delta. WestJet 8380, hold short of Sierra. Runway 7738, pushback approved, facing south. constant stream on 35 right now. WestJet 4914, pushback approved, facing east.
Hold short of taxiway 0, WestJet 8380.
What I'll probably do is just bring all these guys down to 29 for now, and then if we need to, we can switch them over to 35 right.
773 heat.
That isn't going to work. He's pushing that way.
Pushback approved, facing east. WestJet 4914.
If 3 nautical miles isn't going to work because we've got to keep stuff moving, then let me have a look what I've got on 35 right. It's just narrows and regionals on 35 right, but we've got a constant stream. Okay. WestJet 126 Nana, runway 29 via Gulf. WestJet 126 Nana, runway 29 via Gulf.
I'm on the ground, WestJet 1269er. Runway 29er, we're off, WestJet 1269er.
Okay. Keep all these guys moving.
That's lower, 5245 on final 35 left.
Hopefully you're going to be able to see stuff on the ideas, but it is going to be very
Calgary
busy.
ground, Air Canada 4143, ready to taxi.
Calgary Tower, flare 30.
It's getting these arrivals in from 35 right, which is going to be interesting. WestJet's got to go, oh my. He's got to go all the way across as well, so we're going to have to bring him across Juliet. WestJet 4580, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet via Charlie.
Taxi and hold at the intersection of taxiway Charlie and Juliet via Charlie. WestJet 450.
WestJet 4580, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet via Hotel. WestJet 4914, runway 35 right at Sierra via Echo Delta. Wing 7738, taxi to the intersection of Golf and Juliet. Ameri Flight 2252 approved, expect runway 29er. Ameri Flight 2252. Flight 2252 approved, expect runway 29er. Delta 8618, runway 35 right, line up and wet.
Approved, expect runway 29er. Flight 225.
Air Canada 4143, runway 29er, line up and wet. Air Canada 4143, runway 29er, line up and wet. WestJet 1106. No, you can't go. Air Canada 277, pushback approved, facing south. Air Canada 5834, pushback approved, facing east. Air Canada 5245, runway 35 left, cleared to land. Delta 8618, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. KLM 1403 heavy, pushback approved, facing south. WestJet 9226, taxi to the intersection of Bravo and Echo via Bravo. WestJet 9226, taxi to the intersection of Bravo and Echo via Bravo. Never mind then. WestJet 9226, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Flight 3056, runway 35 right, clear to land. WestJet 569er, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet via Charlie.
Pushback approved, facing east, Air Canada 5834.
WestJet 4580, runway 29er via Gulf. WestJet 4580, runway 29er via Gulf.
Runway 35 right.
United 6813, runway 35 right, to line up and wet.
Departure, Delta 8618.
Be down. Air Canada 4143, runway 29er, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure.
Taxi and hold at the
WestJet 1269, runway 29er, line up and wet.
226.
Gunwing 7738, runway 29er via Gulf. WestJet 1063, runway 35 left, clear to land. United 6813, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. KLM 1403 heavy, runway 35 right via Juliet, Bravo. KLM 1403 heavy, runway 35 right via Juliet, Bravo. Floor 3056. He's going all the way down there as well, brilliant.
Taxi and hold at the intersection.
Air Canada 5245, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. Okay, we're going to switch this back to 5 nautical miles because this is going to be way too difficult.
Runway 35 right, clear to land.
United 122, runway 35 right, clear to land. Fly 3056, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Air Canada 5834, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo.
Unable to take off from this runway, the runway is too short for...
WestJet 1269, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 4914, runway 35 right, line up and wait.
Runway 35 right.
Lufthansa 3462 heavy, pushback approved facing north. Air Canada 8739, pushback approved facing south. Flight 2252, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. WestJet 569, cross runway 29. WestJet 820, runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet 4580, runway 29, line up and wait. WestJet 4914, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 8380, continue taxi, runway 35 right, line up and wait. WestJet 9226, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Gulf via Juliet. Fly 3056, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Gulf via Juliet. WestJet 4580, runway 29, line up and wait. Air Canada 5245, cross runway 29. WestJet 1063, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. Flight 402 approved, expect runway 29. Air Canada 6135, pushback approved, facing south. WestJet 4580, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000. Contact departure. Sunwing 7738, runway 29, line up and wait. WestJet 8380, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. United 122, taxi to the intersection of Bravo and Echo. United 122, hold position. Lufthansa 3462 heavy, taxi to the intersection of Bravo and Echo via Bravo. WestJet 7480 heavy, runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet 1063, cross runway 29. Flight 2252, runway 29 via Gulf. Air Canada 8739, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. Porter Air 3583, runway 35 right, clear to land. Sunwing 7738, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. KLM 1403 heavy, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Air Canada 5834, runway 35 right at Sierra via Delta. WestJet 4705, pushback approved facing south.
Runway 35 left, clear to land WestJet 1063.
Okay. WestJet 569. He's going in there. WestJet 9226, taxi to the intersection of Golf and Foxtrot. Flight 3056, taxi to the intersection of Golf and Foxtrot. Okay. WestJet 820, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. WestJet 7480 heavy, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. KLM 1403 heavy, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff. No, why are you going there?
Runway 35 right, by Juliet 2 Bravo. KLM 1403 heavy.
Porter Air 3583, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Golf via Juliet. WestJet 7981, runway 35 right, clear to land. WestJet 4341, runway 35 left, clear to land. Flight 2252, runway 29, line up and wait.
Runway 35 right, by Juliet Bravo. KLM 1403.
WestJet 9226, taxi to the intersection of Uniform and Yankee via Foxtrot Uniform. Flight 3056, taxi to the intersection of Foxtrot and Uniform. There's one going around. WestJet 7981, turn right, heading 090, contact departure. WestJet 820, cross runway 29. Where are you going? WestJet 569, taxi to terminal via Golf. Air Canada 5245, taxi to terminal via Golf. WestJet 4705, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. Air Canada 8739, runway 35 right via Bravo. Porter Air 3247, runway 35 right, clear to land. Cargo Jet 5236, runway 35 left, clear to land. Take next available exit on left. WestJet 4341, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. This is crazy, isn't it? I don't know where I'm doing this.
Taxi and hold at the intersection of Taxiway Echo and Bravo via Echo. Air Canada 5834.
He's taking some weird taxiway here. Porter Air 3583, hold position. Condor 3122 heavy, pushback approved, facing south. KLM 1403 heavy, contact departure. United 122 taxi to terminal via Bravo Alpha. Lufthansa 3462 heavy, runway 35 right via Bravo. WestJet 9226 cross runway 29. Flight 3056 taxi to the intersection of Uniform and Yankee via Uniform, cross runway 29. Flight 2252 runway 29 cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Air Canada 5834 runway 35 right, line up and wait. WestJet 4705 runway 35 right via Bravo. Flight 1545 pushback approved, facing west. WestJet 2152 pushback approved, facing south. Cargo Jet 7680 heavy, pushback approved, facing east. Cargo Jet 5236 taxi to ramp via Whiskey. Airfront 6582 heavy, runway 35 left, clear to land. Air Canada 5834 runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure.
Taxi and hold at the intersection of Taxiway Hotel and Juliet. And flight 2252.
Okay, they're going in there. Porter Air 6365, pushback approved, facing south. Porter Air 3583, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Hotel Delta via Charlie.
Cross runway 29er, WestJet 569er.
Okay. WestJet 740, runway 35 right, clear to land. I don't think this is going to work, I might have to turn 35 right off.
Runway 35 left, clear to land, WestJet 820.
Air Canada 6135, runway 29 via Golf. Air Canada 277, runway 29 via Golf.
Runway 29er, line up and wait.
Air Canada 8739, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Flight 2252, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff. WestJet 9226, taxi to terminal via Yankee Lima. Boy 3056, taxi to terminal via Yankee Lima. Boy 3247, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Victor via Juliet. French cargo 7778, heavy pushback approved, facing north. Boy 1545, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. Condor 3122, heavy taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. WestJet 1725, heavy runway 35 left, clear to land. Air France 6582, heavy taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. Air Canada 8739, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. And flight 2252, contact departure. Cargo jet 7680, heavy taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Charlie. Okay. WestJet 7480, heavy cross runway 29. WestJet 2152, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. WestJet 6365, runway 29 via Golf. WestJet 6365, runway 29 via Golf. WestJet 2922, runway 35 right, clear to land. Still going for now. WestJet 740, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Clear 1545, runway 35 right at Sierra via Delta. Condor 3122 heavy, runway 35 right via Bravo. Lufthansa 3462 heavy, runway 35 right, line up and wait. WestJet 6316, runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet 9226, cross runway 35 left. Porto 3583, taxi to terminal via Charlie.
Negative lead pushback truck, flight 402.
Where's WestJet going? Coming in here.
Pushback approved, facing South Africa, 6135.
Encore 2077, pushback approved, facing south. WestJet 6747, pushback approved, facing south. Lufthansa 3462 heavy, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. American 3564, pushback approved, facing west. French cargo 7778, heavy taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Bravo. Air Canada 6135, runway 29, line up and wait. WestJet 1725, heavy taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. WestJet 2152, runway 29 via Golf. Air Canada 6549, pushback approved, facing south. I need to go to that camera. Encore 3755, pushback approved, facing west. Air Canada 7916, pushback approved, facing south. WestJet 740, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Victor via Juliet. UPS 3345, runway 35 right, clear to land.
Hold position, clean item 122.
WestJet 1063, taxi to terminal via Juliet. WestJet 1063, taxi to terminal via Golf. Air Canada 6135, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Flight 3056, cross runway 35 left. Air Canada 277, runway 29, line up and wait. French cargo 7778, heavy, runway 35 right via Bravo. Sunwing 7508, pushback approved, facing east. WestJet 2922, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Encore 2077, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo.
Runway 35 left, cleared to land.
WestJet 820, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Hotel Delta via Charlie. WestJet 4341, cross runway 29. WestJet 6316, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. WestJet 5162, runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet 7480 heavy, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Hotel Delta. Air Canada 403, pushback approved, facing south. WestJet 4705, runway 35 right, line up and wait.
Taxi and hold at the intersection of taxiway Echo and Bravo by Echo.
WestJet 251 Nana, pushback approved, expect runway 35 left. Cargo Jet 5236, cross runway 29. Cargo Jet 7680 heavy, cross runway 35. Porter 3247, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Hotel Delta via Charlie. WestJet 740, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Hotel Delta via Charlie. Air Canada 277, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Boy 3056, cross runway 35 left. WestJet 4705, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Air Canada 277, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 6747, runway 29 via Gulf. WestJet 2922, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Romeo via Juliet. American 3564, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. Sunwing 7508, pushback approved, facing east. WestJet 8455, runway 35 right, clear to land. Air France 6582 heavy, cross runway 29. Porto 6365, runway 29, line up and wait. Encore 651, runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet 5162, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. Air Canada 7916, runway 29 via Gulf. Air Canada 7916, runway 29 via Gulf. Encore 3755, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. We got anything else up here that's pushed?
Runway 35 right.
Air Canada, we'll get all these guys in a minute. Air Canada 6015, pushback approved, facing south. Boy 1545, runway 35 right, line up and wait. If you want a busy schedule, this is the one for you. This is mental. UPS 3345, taxi to the intersection of Bravo and Echo via Bravo. Encore 2077, runway 35 right at Sierra via Delta. They're all there, they're all there.
Taxi and hold at the intersection of taxiway Golf 8 and Foxtrot. West.
Air Canada 6015 there. Air Canada 403, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. Air Transat 7477, pushback approved, facing west. Blur 1545, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. That's probably going to have to make him go around. WestJet 2519, runway 35 left at Lima. Air Canada 2758, pushback approved, expect runway 35 left. WestJet 7981, runway 35 right, cleared to land. They're all coming down here. WestJet 820, taxi to terminal. Let me just check there's no one else pushed back here. Where's he going? Okay. WestJet 7480 heavy, taxi to terminal. Porto 3247, taxi to terminal via Charlie. WestJet 740, taxi to terminal. WestJet 4341, taxi to terminal. He's coming down. Cargo Jet 3571 Heavy, runway 35 left, clear to land, take next available exit on left. WestJet 1725 Heavy, cross runway 29er. Condor can't go, I'm gonna have to hold him.
Runway 35 right, clear to land.
American 3564, runway 35 right at Sierra via Delta. WestJet 2922, taxi to terminal.
Runway 35 left, clear to land.
WestJet 4341, taxi to the intersection of Golf and Juliet. Okay. WestJet 4341, taxi to terminal via Golf. Inbound rush time.
Runway 29er, line up.
Quarter 6365, runway 29er, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Encore 651, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. WestJet 251 you don't wait actually. Sunwing 1416, runway 35 right, clear to land. Sunwing 7508, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. WestJet 8455, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. WestJet 7981, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Air Canada 403, runway 35 right via Bravo.
Taxi and hold at the intersection of taxiway uniform.
Encore 3755, runway 29er via Golf. And WestJet 2152, runway 29er, line up and wait. FedEx 571, runway 35 left, cleared to land, take next available exit on left. Okay. Condor 3122 Heavy, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Capital Jet 3571 Heavy, taxi to ramp. Cargo Jet 3571 Heavy, taxi to ramp via Whiskey. Okay, he's going there. Air Canada 6015, runway 29er via Golf. WestJet 2439, runway Freebird 9741 Heavy, pushback approved facing south. United 2568, pushback approved facing east. Air Transat 7477, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. WestJet 2519, runway 35 left, line up and wait. Flight 3746 approved, expect runway 35 left. WestJet 6316, cross runway 29er. Condor 3122 Heavy, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 8455, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Romeo via Juliet. WestJet 7981, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Romeo via Juliet. Where's Sunwing going? Sunwing 1416, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. WestJet 2519, runway 35 left, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Alaska 6546, runway 35 right, clear to land. Flight 7162, pushback approved, expect runway 35 left. FedEx 571, taxi to ramp via Whiskey. WestJet 5162, cross runway 29er. Flight 6194, pushback approved, facing south. Air Canada 9977, pushback approved, facing south. Air Canada 6549, pushback approved, facing south.
Cross runway 29er, WestJet 820.
Okay, Condor's there. Encore 2077, runway 35 right, line up and wait. KLM 1884 Heavy, runway 35 left, clear to land. Cargo Jet 7680 Heavy, crash runway 35 left.
Taxi to terminal via Golf, WestJet 569er.
WestJet 8455, taxi to terminal. WestJet 7981, taxi to terminal. He's going in the
Taxi and hold at the
Sunwing 1416, taxi to terminal via Juliet. Sorry. Sunwing 1416, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Romeo. Encore 2077, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. And flight 3746, runway 35 left out to Lima. Flight 7162 is not ready. WestJet 2152, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 6747, runway 29, line up and wait. Cargo Jet 7680 Heavy, runway 29 via Gulf. Cargo Jet 7680 Heavy, runway 29 via Gulf. Alaska 6456, runway 35 right, clear to land. French Cargo 7778 Heavy, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Air Transat 7477, runway 35 right via Bravo. Alaska 6546, taxi to the intersection of Delta, Alaska 6546, taxi to terminal. WestJet 3440, runway 35 left, clear to land. KLM 1884 Heavy, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. Flight 7162, runway 35 left. French Cargo 7778 Heavy is there. UPS 3345, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Romeo. Speedbird 9741 Heavy, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. WestJet 3440, runway 35 left, clear to land. French Cargo 7778 Heavy, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. FedEx 571, taxi to ramp. NCAR 651, runway 35 left. Flight 3746, runway 35 left, line up and wait. WestJet 6747, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet Nana 668, runway 35 right, cleared to land. Sunwing 1416, taxi to terminal via Juliet. Air Canada 6549, runway 29 via Gulf. WestJet 2381, pushback approved, facing south. Air Canada 9977, runway 29 via Gulf. Wow, look at this queue up here. Flight 402, pushback approved, expect runway 29. WestJet 4411, pushback approved, facing south. Encore 9149, pushback approved, facing south. Air Canada 6549 is there. Flight 3746, runway 35 left, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. American 3564, runway 35 right, line up and wait. WestJet 2248, pushback approved, facing south. Air Canada 6549, runway 29 via Gulf. Air Canada 6549, runway 29. Air Canada 6549, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. WestJet 3202, runway 35 left, clear to land. American 3564, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Okay, he's not moving, so he's getting deleted.
Hold position, Porter Air 3583.
WestJet 1106, pushback approved, facing west. WestJet 1106, pull back to the gates. WestJet 8042, runway 35 right, clear to land. Speedbird 9741 Heavy, runway 35 right via Bravo. United 2568, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Bravo. WestJet 9668, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Okay, we're going to make this decision. And we're going to turn 35 right off for arrivals.
Calgary departure on 119.8. KLM 1403 heavy.
Air Canada 7916, runway 29, line up and wait. WestJet 3440, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. WestJet 3302, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. Canada 403, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Canada, okay. UPS 7414 heavy, runway 35 left, clear to land, take next available exit on left. Canada 2758, pushback approved, expect runway 35 left. WestJet Nana 673, pushback approved, expect runway 35 left. WestJet 2381, runway 29 via Gulf. WestJet 243 Nana, pushback approved, facing south. Sunwing 7508, runway 35 right via Bravo. Air Canada 403, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Okay. Alaska 6456 is there. Below 770 Nana, pushback approved, facing east. Encore 914 Nana, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. WestJet 2248, runway 29 via Gulf. Did we push anyone else? Flight 402, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. WestJet 4411, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. WestJet 8687, runway 35 right, clear to land. UPS 3345, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Gulf. Alaska 6456, taxi to terminal via Juliet. Alaska 6456, hold position. Alaska 6456, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Romeo. Air Transat 7477, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Air Canada 7916, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Flight 7162, runway 35 left, line up and wait. Encore 3755, runway 29, line up and wait. WestJet 9673, runway 35 left. Air Canada 2758, runway 35 left at Lima. UPS 7414 heavy, taxi to ramp. UPS 3345, taxi to terminal via Juliet. Cargo Jet 3571 heavy, cross runway 29. Encore 651, cross runway 29. Air Transat 7477, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 8042, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Flight 7709, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Bravo. United 9906, pushback approved, facing east. Encore 9149, runway 29 via Gulf. Flight 7162, runway 35 left, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Encore 90149, runway 29 via Gulf. Flight 402, runway 29 via Gulf. WestJet 4411, runway 29 via Charlie Gulf. WestJet 4411, runway 29 via Hotel Gulf. WestJet 4411, runway 29 via Gulf. Air Canada 8526, runway 2... Air Canada 8526, runway 35 right, clear to land. WestJet 5246, runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet 2439, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. United 9906, pushback approved, facing east. WestJet 8687, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. United 2568, runway 35 right via Bravo. Okay, get a little bit more of a chance now. WestJet 9673 is at 35 left, that's fine.
Runway 35 right, line up and wait. Air Canada.
Air France 6582 heavy, taxi to the intersection of... Actually no, where's Alaska going? Alaska 6456, taxi to terminal via Juliet Romeo. WestJet 6704, pushback approved facing south. Speedbird 9741 heavy, runway 35 right to line up and wait. Air Canada 2758, runway 35 left to line up and wait. Encore 3755, runway 29er, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Air Canada 6015, runway 29er, line up and wait. Air France 6582 heavy, taxi to terminal via Juliet, Juliet Romeo. WestJet 9668, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Quebec via Juliet. Speedbird 9741 heavy, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Sunwing 7508, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Air Canada 2758, runway 35 left, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. UPS 3345, cross runway 35 left. Quick, hurry up before he takes off. KLM 1884 heavy, cross runway 29er. WestJet 1725 heavy. Taxi to terminal via Juliet, Juliet Romeo. WestJet 6316. Taxi to terminal via Juliet. WestJet 5162. You can hold. Air Canada 8664, runway 35 left, clear to land. Okay, WestJet 2439, runway 35 right via Bravo. Air Canada 8526. Taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. United 9906, taxi to the intersection of Bravo and Echo via Bravo. WestJet 5246, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. He's all lined up. Sunwing 7508, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. United 2568, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Fly 7709, runway 35 right via Bravo. He's coming in there. Who's up here then? Air Canada 8251, pushback approved facing south. WestJet 1106, pushback approved facing west. Fly 6194, pushback approved facing west. WestJet 2032, pushback approved facing south. WestJet 6704, runway 29er via Gulf. Air Canada 6358, pushback approved facing west. United 2568, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Air Canada 6015, runway 29er, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Cargo Jet 6780 heavy, runway 29er, line up and Cargo Jet 7680 heavy, runway 29er, line up and wait. Okay, WestJet 2439, runway 35 right, line up and wait. United 9906, runway 35 right via Bravo. Fly 5171, pushback approved facing east. WestJet 5903 there. He's going there. WestJet 5162, taxi to terminal via Juliet. That works.
Runway 29er, cleared for immediate takeoff.
Alaska 7758, runway 35 left, clear to land. Air Canada 8864, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. UPS 3345, cross runway 29er. Encore 651, taxi to terminal via Juliet. KLM 1884 heavy, taxi to terminal via Juliet. Okay, let's get all this stuff pushed on. WestJet 1106, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. He's not ready yet. Blur 6194, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. WestJet 9673, runway 35 left, line up and wait. Cargo Jet 7680 heavy, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Air Canada 9977, runway 29, line up and wait. WestJet 2439, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Flight 7709, runway 35 right, line up and wait.
Pushback approved facing north, French cargo 7778 heavy.
WestJet 3440, cross runway 29. Alaska 7758, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. WestJet 2032, runway 29 via Gulf. Alaska WestJet 1106, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. Air Canada 1802, pushback approved facing south. WestJet 1106, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. Is he stuck? I think he's stuck.
Taxi and hold at the intersection of taxiway, go and Bravo, may I go off flare 1545. Taxi and hold at the intersection.
WestJet 9763, runway 35 left, cleared for immediate. WestJet 9673, runway 35 left, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 3202, cross runway 29. Flight 7709, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. United 9906, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Flight 5171, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Bravo. Flight 2388, where are you going? Flight 2388, pushback approved facing east. Air Canada 6358, runway 29 via Gulf. WestJet 5246, cross runway 29. Air Canada 6094, pushback approved, expect runway 35 left. Air Canada 9977, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 2381, runway 29, line up and wait. Waterway 7832 from wait. Air Canada 1802, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. And flight 5404, pushback approved facing south. And flight 5404 approved, expect runway 29. Cargo Jet 1365 heavy, pushback approved facing east. American 5055, runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet 5903, pushback approved facing east. WestJet 9668, taxi to terminal via Juliet Echo. WestJet 5903, pull back to the gate. WestJet 8042, taxi to terminal via Juliet. WestJet 8042, taxi to terminal via Juliet. WestJet 8042, taxi to terminal via Echo. Why not working? WestJet 8042, taxi to terminal. WestJet 8042, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Echo. WestJet 8042, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Romeo. WestJet 8042, taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Romeo. Okay, he's broke as well. Great.
Runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff on reaching altitude 1000.
WestJet 2381, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 2248, runway 29, line up and wait. United 9906, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 8687. Taxi to terminal via Juliet. WestJet 8687. Taxi to terminal. Okay, I've got another broken aircraft.
Calgary departure on 119.8.
Air Canada 8526. Taxi to the intersection of Juliet and Juliet Romeo.
Taxi and hold at the intersection of taxiway Juliet and Charlie. Cargo jet 76.
Use the next one. WestJet 2248, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Encore 9014 runway 29, line up and wait. Air Canada 6094, pushback approved, facing south. Cargo jet 1365 heavy, runway 35 left via Whiskey Alpha. Flyer 6194, runway 29 via Golf. Air Canada 1802, runway 29 via Golf. WestJet 5903, pushback approved, facing east. WestJet 4374, pushback approved, facing south. Flyer 2388, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo. And flight 675, runway 35 left, cleared to land. Air Canada 8664, cross runway 29. Flyer 5171, runway 35 right via Bravo. American 2389, pushback approved, facing east. Delta 4420, pushback approved, facing east. WestJet 90824, pushback approved, facing south. And flight 5404, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. Water 2302, pushback approved, facing west. Air Transat 7600, pushback approved, facing south. WestJet 1357, pushback approved, facing west.
Runway 29.
Flyer 2388, runway 35 right via Bravo. American 1419, pushback approved, facing east. WestJet 2472, pushback approved, facing east. Alaska 7758, cross runway 29. WestJet 5903, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. Flight 5171, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. American 5005, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. Air Canada 6094, runway 35 left. American 4263, pushback approved, facing south.
Runway 35 right via Bravo. Combat for 1.
WestJet 4374, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. Whereabouts is he going? He's going in there.
Runway 35 right. Line up and wait. With descent 472.
Still not down.
Runway 35 left, clear to land. WestJet 6316.
They're all there. Air Transat 7600, runway 29 via Golf.
Runway 35 left. WestJet 90226.
WestJet 5903, runway 35 right at Sierra via Delta. Delta 4420, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. Encore 9149, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. And flight 402, runway 29, line up and wait. Air Canada 6094, runway 25 left, line up and wait. Air Canada 6094, runway 35 left. Oh, you can wait, actually no.
Pushback approved.
WestJet 4374, runway 35 right via Bravo. American 1419, taxi to the intersection of Delta and Echo via Delta. WestJet 2472, taxi to the intersection of Echo and Bravo via Echo. WestJet 1357, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. flight 7508, runway 35 left, clear to land. Flight 675. Taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. Water 2302, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. Flight 4241, pushback approved facing west. American 2579, pushback approved facing west. WestJet 2824, pushback approved facing south. WestJet 90824, pushback approved facing south. Anchor 781, pushback approved facing east. Flight 2388, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. Delta 4420, runway 35 right at Sierra. American 1419, runway 35 right at Sierra via Delta. American 2389, runway 35 right via Echo Bravo. Air Canada 8526, taxi to terminal via Juliet. Air Canada 6094, runway 35 left, line up and wait. American 4263, runway 35 left. Flight 402, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 4411, runway 29, line up and wait. WestJet 4411, runway 29, line up and wait. WestJet 5903 is there, that's fine. Delta 8902, pushback approved facing east. WestJet 734, heavy pushback approved facing south. WestJet 2472, runway 35 right via Bravo. Flyer 5922, pushback approved facing west. WestJet 7466, pushback approved facing east. Flight 5404, runway 29 via Gulf. Air Canada 6094, runway 35 left, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. American 4263, runway 35 left, line up and wait. WestJet 5903, runway 35 right, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 4374, runway 35 right, line up and wait. Flight 7508, taxi to the intersection of Charlie and Juliet. Anchor 781, runway 29 via Gulf. WestJet 90824, runway 29 via Gulf. American 2579, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. Flight 4241, taxi to the intersection of Hotel and Juliet. WestJet 90824, runway 29 via Gulf. WestJet 4411, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 5159, pushback approved facing east. WestJet 4411, runway 29, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. WestJet 6794, runway 29, line up and wait. WestJet 90824, runway 29 via Gulf. Got another broken aircraft. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there anyway. It's been an absolute hectic schedule. This has been a little bit crazy. Probably put too much on myself, to be honest, with this one. It's been a little bit of a mental schedule, hasn't it? Especially trying to use all the runways. Been quite fun. We had a few broken aircraft. We didn't really have any crashes or anything, so that's the main thing when you're trying to keep stuff like this. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll definitely play this again, I think, on a little bit less of a schedule next time. Just to try and see what it can actually do. We're just playing absolute crazy stuff there. But yeah, please let me know what you think. Do you prefer these busy ones? Do you prefer something a little bit quieter? Do you prefer shorter videos? Please do let me know in the comments. And as always, if you do like the content, please do like and subscribe, and do give a thumbs up to the video if you do like it. If you do have any suggestions for anything you do want to see in the future, then please do let me know as well. But for now, that's it for the end of this one. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.